We are live. We are live. Welcome to college football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Flugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our ever-growing channel. Smash the like button. If you like our content, share the video with your family and friends. And if you want to support this channel, this Rebel Outpost college football channel with a super chat, just hit that $sign, put it in a comment, and we'll get to your comment as quick as possible. Welcome into the studio that sits on the corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid, PATC community. Do not be afraid to be a legend with your comments in the chat and with your phone calls later in the show. The title of the show, the 4 power conferences, they want more control. I think it's heading down that track. The conferences want more control, and they believe there's going to have to be some collective bargaining with the student athletes. There was an article on On3 that came out today. We're going to be going through that article. But there's this breaking news. A few minutes before we came on live. Breaking news. National Labor Relations Board from Amanda Kristovich from Front Office Sports. She does such an incredible job reporting news from NLRB trial in LA over USC's football and basketball players being employees, the USC, the Pac-12, and the NCAA all filed motions to dismiss. The judge has just denied all three motions. Holy smokes. And I think that is just the tip of the iceberg. Tip of the iceberg. We're also going to be talking about not just the Power Four conferences they believe they should get more and more power. We're going to go through that. We're going to go through we're going to start out with a fun little article. A fun little article that came out. Not a fun little article. I think it's fun. I think it's going to be fun to go through it. It sounds somewhat like what we're going through right now in college football, in college athletics. But it was written on January 7th, 1977. January 7th, 1977. We're going to start with that. It's just a fun little thing I want to start out with today. Now, unfortunately, the screenshots, it's really difficult to see. It's really difficult to read. So I'm going to read it for you as best I can. This was, and then when we get through this fun little part to start the show, I'm going to go through the chat room. Thank you all for coming on in. Keep your head on a swivel on all breaking news. We're going to start with this fun little article that came out January 7th, 1977. Splits within college ranks threaten existence of the NCAA. Big schools may go their own way. Well, isn't that what we're talking about right now? Isn't that what we're talking about today? Huh? I think it is. This is from Paul Atner from the Times Post Service. January 7th, 1977, more than ever. The NCAA is deeply divided and headed toward a crisis that could result in its destruction. And no one seems to know how to patch the cracks before they get too wide. The new NCAA executive director, Walter Byers, who once laughed off talk of his organization splitting apart. I'm sorry, this is just, I find this quite interesting. Is speaking of convulsions and disruptions within the group he has served for the last 25 years. Again, January 7th, 1977. That is how serious and open the wounds in the NCAA have become. Byers is presiding over an organization that has football powers warring with college presidents and small colleges, fearing that they're being run over by everyone. There is resentment and pessimism in all quarters, and not even Byers has a way to put things at ease. To the average sports fan who is befuddled by the talk about reorganization in terms like need and whatever 1.6 is and the equivalences and the rest of the special language that has been overwhelmed the NCAA, such squabbling may not seem important. But it is. Because a schism within the NCAA could affect not only alumni you, but also what you watch on those Saturday afternoon football telecasts and those March NCAA basketball finals. Hold on 1 second here. Hold on. Schools like, I'm having a hard time with this thing here. Hold on. Anyways, I'm having a hard time with the photos. Hold on, we're gonna skip that part, but it does say it splits up the schools in a way that we won't split them up at this time. It says schools like Oklahoma. Let me see if I can. I want to post this up here so you can better see it. But it's not letting me do that. I wonder why it's not letting me do that. Not good. Anyways, I'll get to the second picture here. I know it's very difficult to see. Very difficult to see. And if the Big Eight, Southeastern, Southwest, other conferences leave, they're talking about leaving the NCAA. They will leave it with all their sports teams, not just football. Many NCAA observers are convinced that the football schools would pull out immediately if they could convince the Big Ten and the Pacific 10 schools to join them. It goes on and on and on. I will provide a link in the description, but it is something else to watch. It is something else to read. It's talking about financial pressure created by the advent of Title IX. If you go to the last part of the article, another troublesome area deals with the NCAA football television contract, which currently calls for some of its $10 million total to be distributed to Division II and Division III schools. A few football powers feel that future and probably more lucrative contracts should not be as generous to the smaller colleges, a position they believe will be strengthened by reorganization. The football powers don't want to let anyone else share in the wealth. They don't want guarantees anymore for the smaller schools. I don't know. It's a fascinating article to read. Very difficult. I get it. I'm going to provide a link later on in the description. You can read it with a microscope. This was an article January 7th, 1977. I think it's quite humorous to read because we're going to be going through an article that, I don't know, some of it sounds quite similar today. Let me get to the super chat here. I appreciate it. And then we'll get to some of your comments. Then we're going to get to more of our monologue, rock and rant. 2 with 2 kids in the back. Good job, Greg. Thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it. Rock and rant. The evil badger, Ryan Willie. If college football and college basketball are considered employees, it could ruin college and pro sports. Thank you for the super chat, Ryan Willie. I appreciate it. Let's get to, I want to thank everybody's come on in. Then we're going to get to this, I believe, in a very important article written by On3 Patrick. The Baylor Bear is in the house. Expedition Greg. Skull Ducky. Randy Taylor. Minnesota Seminoles. R. Webb. Illini Ted. The Big Lubbock is in the house. John Dry. The Buffalo, Richard L. is in the house. Gene Calderon. Bill G. David Hackett. Holy smokes. Okay, AAR is in the house. Tony, Tough Tony is in the house. Cameron B. It says Oklahoma, Alabama, Arizona State's in a walkout. Thank you, Cameron B. Very difficult to read, especially with these old eyes. Laura Weiss, Texas Tech Red Raider is in the house. Jamie Thornton, Mrs. Razorback is in the house. Let's get to this article. We've already talked about the breaking news about 45 minutes before we came on today. News from the National Labor Relations Board. denied the motions. All three motions, USC, Pac-12, NCAA, filed the motion to dismiss in regards to the potentiality of USC, in this particular case, their football players and basketball players from becoming employees. We're going to talk about this article right here, right now. And then I want to take a moment. I want to take a moment here. We have been told nothing is for sure. Nothing is nailed down. We've been given a little bit of a heads up. We've been given a little bit of a heads up on something that might occur later this week. And no, it's not about Clemson. There is a Florida State Board of Trustees meeting that is going to be Wednesday, January 31st, and Thursday, February 1st. Now, this has been out there for a while, for a few days at least. We knew, everybody knew this was out there. The agenda was released. We have been told this is not nailed down. This is not nailed down. But the PATC community should keep their head on a swivel. Not when it comes to the agenda of Wednesday. This is the agenda of Thursday, February 1st. So we don't expect anything of interest when it comes to what we talk about here in the College Football YouTube channel on Wednesday. But Thursday, if you go to the second page, when you go to the second page of the agenda, you see that Michael Alford is going to be talking about athletics update. Michael Alford, Vice President, Director of Athletics, the Athletic Director, right? But that is, we don't believe, he could say something of interest. Now, we're not talking about of interest when it comes to the court cases. So we're not going there. We're not going there on this show. They're going to leave that to the lawyers. What we're talking about here is we've been told to keep a heads up that Florida State might discuss in regards to what they just did last week. Might have an update in being able to what we call, they look like they've established a line of credit. There might be something of importance, not so much by the athletic director, Mike Alford, but the chair's report from Peter Collins, which is coming at the very end of a 2-day board of trustees. There are people in and around Florida State that believe something of interest might be talked out in public by the board, the chairman, or the athletic director, but probably the chair of the board of trustees at Florida State. And it ain't going to have to it's not going to be related directly to the court case, but their actions and their continued actions. We'll just leave it at that. But so anyways, keep your head on a swivel sometime in the morning, late morning on February 1st, this Thursday. Okay, I just wanted to get that out there as well. If we get more information today or tomorrow or Wednesday in regards to the Thursday meeting, then we'll report it here at Peek Around the Corner. Okay? All right. So, what is the breaking point for the Power Four? Written, published today on 3, as the NCAA faces mounting legal threats. Multiple legal threats. One long speculated question is beginning to gather more steam. Is there a breaking point for the Power Four conferences? The moment they run out of patience and look to break away from the association? Several sources in recent weeks told on 3 that there is significant pushback on the reform proposal NCAA President Charlie Baker unveiled last month. Now, we were told that in a report from Yahoo Sports 2 weeks ago, that the Big Ten and the SEC were pushing back. Now, according to this report, it's also the Big 12 and the ACC. Among the many reasons for the consternation, even if the plan is enacted, it still requires a long shot assist from Congress to thwart further legal threats. In other words, why go through all this work? Even if we do push this vision, the proposal that Charlie Baker has, if we don't get protection from the Congress, a carve out, we're still going to get annihilated in the courts. And people's patience are waning. People really don't believe they're going to get that support from the court. Absence congressional intervention. The only way to implement a model not subject to antitrust scrutiny is for it to be collectively bargained. Again, we at Peek Around the Corner support this. We've talked about it since episode number 1, our manifesto. We opened up the YouTube channel. This is the future. It's the only way to protect themselves from the courts. There's also another thing to protect themselves from the courts. We're going to get into this article. Athletes need to be employees in order to unionize, which has been a hard line in the sand for virtually all members of the college sports administrative class. Some leading stakeholders, Yahoo Sports reported last week, also believe the proposal does not go far enough to be accepted in settlement negotiations in the House antitrust case, and that only a regulated revenue sharing model is the prudent move. A revenue sharing model, which we'll get to in a second, a revenue sharing model controlled, distributed by the conferences. The conferences. We'll get to that in a moment. Along with that model, along with the collective bargaining, that seems to be the way forward. That seems to be a building consensus among the Big 12, the ACC, the Big 10, and the SEC. Even though Greg Sankey is 100% against pretty much all of this, you need to protect yourself from these continuing lawsuits without the help of Congress. At least you have to plan it that way. While Baker's plan would allow schools for the first time to directly pay athletes through a trust fund established by the highly resourced schools in a new subdivision, it stops short of giving athletes a slice of an enormous media rights deal at the top tier of college athletes. There's a definitely pushback on that idea, the idea of a trust fund. Chicago-based attorney Lakeisha Marsh, chair of the Collegiate Athletic Practice at Ackerman LLP, told On3 last week, Marsh regularly advises clients on a host of issues, including Title IX and NIL. So there's a pushback on individual trust funds from every institution building a trust fund to pay the student athletes. There's a pushback on that. Characterizing the general sentiment among many leading stakeholders right now, Marsh added, a little bit of trepidation and fear of the unknown. The great unrest is what we call it here at Peek Around the Corner. The great unrest. There was the great unrest of 1912 in Britain. There's the great unrest in 2024 in college football, the game we all love. The great unrest. It's an uneasy feeling. That's a better word for not knowing what is going to happen and what model they should be putting in place. During this unprecedented time of disruption, everything is on the table. You could have a model where you have the NCAA as it is right now, but football fully pulls off of that. Maybe basketball fully pulls off of that. One college sports source told On3, and this is where we believe it's heading, you could see conferences continue to gain more power. We're going to get back to that in a second. There could be a decision making at the conference level that dictates revenue outcomes for athletes sharing in conference-wide revenues. Let me circle back to that, because that's the PATC money shot of the article. You could see conferences continue to gain more power. We know from the Alston case, we know, or at least the perception is from the Alston case, that the courts, the Supreme Court, kind of gave a little bit of a wink and a nod in saying that we don't find pretty much any legitimacy when it comes to the NCAA, but we do find legitimacy in the conferences. Conferences gaining more control, given a little bit of a support right now from the courts. You would, so in this world, you could dictate revenue outcomes for athletes sharing in conference-wide revenue. So, instead of the conference, let's just take the Big 12. The Big 12. Okay, let's just take the Big 12. Instead of the Big 12 conference, in accordance to the Big 12 bylaws, distributing their money, conference payouts to each and every school, there would be a carve out of the total pie to say this much money will go to each school, student athletes in football and let's say basketball. So they take a little bit of that revenue money, that media revenue money, not a little bit, quite a decent slice of it, and that gets to the schools into their bucket of, well, actually it goes from the conference to the student athletes directly. Excuse me. Conference payout to the student athletes directly. So the student athletes become employees or quasi-employees, but I'm saying employees of the conferences. The ones that get direct payment from the student athletes. So a West Virginia football player will get the same amount of money as a Kansas football player. A West Virginia left tackle will get as much money as the Kansas right tackle. Each school are going to have NIL, probably more inserted internally, and so you're going to get big differential in pay and resources and compensation in that manner. But with the conferences, there's going to be a student athlete pay across the board for football players, possibly basketball players, and with an agreement with the student athletes, they sign some sort of contract. They get protected. They get medical benefits. Of course, I don't know how exactly it's going to work, if it's going to work at all, but I believe this is where it's heading. Where you slice off some of that media money, that contract, and it goes not to the schools, but it goes directly to the student athletes from the conference. And then the rest of it goes to the schools. It's going to be up to the conferences to determine what percentage of that media contract will go to the student athletes and what student athletes will get that money. And then NIL is going to have to be, you're going to have Title IX issues. A lot of NIL is going to go in-house. Some of it's still going to be third party. Okay. I believe that's where it's going. And I believe that's what this article is also insinuating. Conferences are going to be controlling, they're going to be making more decisions on student athletes' compensation. Not individual trust funds, but it's going to be in-house at the conference level. We shall see. We're going to go back to the article, then we're going to get to your comments and your phone calls amid the breakaway speculation. Now, this is going to get real controversial here. Amid breakaway speculation, here's one big reason why the NCAA needs to placate the power leagues. If a breakaway occurs, the power conferences could also take their own basketball and look to stage their own lucrative postseason championship tournament. The NCAA March Madness rights deal, which runs through 2032, with CBS Sports and Warner Brothers Discovery, delivers the association some $1 billion annually, representing the overwhelming majority of its annual revenue. Whether the power leagues need the NCAA is an open question, but the NCAA needs the power leagues, the power conferences. On this specific point, one prominent source told On3, it's a very real thing to pay attention to. A great article written by Eric Prisbell of On3. Great job. And I think there's a lot of truth, validity to it. I think it speaks the truth. The conference is going to get more and more control. Are they going to be the ones who are going to be paying the students directly, not the schools? A lot of schools don't like this trust fund idea. They want some sort of control, some sort of cap, right? Some sort of cap. And that's going to be bargained with the student athletes within each and every conference. There's going to be some rules, transfer rules, that are going to be universal when it comes to FBS football. But when it comes to money, contracts, compensation level, I think it's going to be in their own conference silos. And they're going to make up their own rules in accordance to whatever the bargaining. So I don't believe, now this might, whoever represents the student athletes in one particular conference may not represent the student athletes in another particular conference. There's so many questions with this. So many questions. There are sports that would this only be, would student athletes only get paid when they're in football and basketball? Could student athletes be paid directly by the conference if they were in a sport for a particular university that actually makes money for the university? In other words, I don't know. There's a lot of different questions. This could split off so many different ways. What do you think, people in the chat? Give me your comments. Give me your phone calls. I'm going to open up the phone lines here pretty soon. A lot of things going on here. A lot of things going on. This is the great unrest of 2024 as we head into the great gold rush of 2026. All of that money, all of that playoff money, how's that going to get split up? And is the Power Four conferences really going to, are they really going to separate from everybody else when it comes to the NCAA basketball tournament in women's and men? For me, as a fan, I hope not. I hope not. But again, right, the possibility of that happening, just the possibility of that happening, you can see Brett Yormark's brain is circularly going and going and going. He wants that he believes that basketball for the Big 12 is going to get way more valuable in the future. Well, part of the reason maybe is because of the breakaway basketball. I hope it doesn't happen. But I'm just trying to think what Brett Yormark is thinking. Of course the basketball programs in the Big 12 are going to skyrocket in value. Everyone else's as well if they break away, keeping more of that money for themselves. I hope it doesn't happen. But we shall see. Greg, I don't even want to imagine how different 2026 is going to look like. Tomorrow, Tuesday, 11 o'clock Eastern, 10 o'clock Central, about 9:45 Central, 10:45 Eastern in the morning, we're going to be going live here at Peek Around the Corner. So if you are available, come on in. We're going to be covering the release of the Big 12 2024 football schedule. I know there's some leaks out there. I saw West Virginia, their schedule has been leaked. If you haven't seen it yet, if you want to know it, I could probably give it to you. I don't know if anybody wants to know it. Is there any Mountaineer fans in the chat room that wants to know what their schedule looks like? I'm going to put it up for a poll. Does the chat want me to release the West Virginia 2024 leaked football schedule? I will go by the majority rules. Greg, what do you think about the Big Ten's new basketball tournament format starting next year? Well, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be... I was going to take a shot at my Gophers. It's going to be a little bit more difficult for my Gophers to make the conference basketball tournament. I don't understand it. How do you bracket a tournament of 15 teams? For those who don't know, the Big Ten, when they go to 18 teams, I don't know. It sounds like the bottom 3 teams are going to get eliminated. So the top 15 go to the basketball tournament. But how do you bracket that? How do you bracket that? So I don't know. It sounds. I don't know how that works. But anyways, I'm gonna end the poll. 44 votes. The yes votes got 86%. Holy smokes, 87. Okay, so this was the leaked. This is the leaked West Virginia schedule for 2024. West Virginia starts the year August 31st at home against Penn State Nittany Lions. That was known. Then West Virginia Mountaineers play at home against Albany on September 7th. Albany had a pretty good FCS team last year. One of their better teams. September 14th, the third week of the season, they're on the road to Pittsburgh, backyard brawl, September 14th. Then the West Virginia Mountaineers play their first Big 12 conference game at home against the Kansas Jayhawks. West Virginia, Kansas, September 21st. Then they get a bye, September 28th. Then they're on the road, West Virginia on the road to play Oklahoma State Cowboys, October 5th. They're at home against Iowa State, October 12th. They're at home against Kansas State, October 19th. Then West Virginia, probably going to be a very crucial game. They're going to be on the road against Arizona, October 26th. Then they get a bye, another bye. They're on the road against Cincinnati, November 7th or 8th. So that hasn't been decided on. Versus Baylor, November 16th. UCF, November 22nd. Is that 12 games? Yes, it is. So that is your West Virginia football schedule that has been leaked. I believe it to be accurate, but we shall see come tomorrow. I don't know if there's any other game. I haven't been given any other information about any other teams. If I get something during the show, I will ask you if you want me to release it. If you say yes, I will. But we'll get to that if I get any more information. Arizona game going to be interesting. No Arizona State game in Morgantown. It doesn't look like it. Doesn't sound like the Red Raiders play the Mountaineers in 2024. Okay, I'm going to open up the phone lines. Going to open up the phone line. 763-260-1333. I did get some responses to our show yesterday in regards to Miami having more support within the Big Ten than just Fox Sports, having it among universities, Michigan, Wisconsin. If things go right for Miami, if ACC implodes, if Florida State can get a decent number on a settlement, if Notre Dame and North Carolina do not become available, Miami, Florida is in the catbird seat. People reached out to me, people that I trust, a lot of A lot of nodding of the head. Yes. Yeah, that's probably what it looks like. So
Call from
Cameron.
I'm sorry, did not get the name on that.
No, this is Cameron.
Candace?
The Jayhawk.
Jayhawk,
Cameron, the
got it.
Jayhawk.
Got it. Floor is yours, sir. What do you got to say?
So I wanted to chat about you were talking about the breakaway and whatnot.
Yeah.
And so I've heard through grapevines, being, a KU alum, that at some point, like a lot of the schools actually are talking about taking the tournament from the NCAA. So football won't be going alone when that does happen.
Yeah. That is fascinating. Fascinating. That's all I'm going to say.
Football's not going alone
Yeah.
when that happens. The schools want to take the tournament from the NCAA. My understanding of what they want all Olympic sports to stay with the NCAA, but they want like football, basketball, and potentially even baseball to be separate.
Yeah.
Since those sports all drive revenue. And
yeah, go ahead.
one of the interesting things a lot of people like always talk about, they're always scared that they're going to lose the Cinderellas and whatnot, but that's not going to change. They're going to pay those schools down a little bit to keep them in the tournament, to add that extra level of spice to it, because it's always fun when you have like a Cinderella run from some of these schools. That's not going to change, but what they're trying to do is get that money from the NCAA, because that's how the NCAA funds themselves, is the tournament.
Okay.
The tournament itself is undervalued. It should be about double the value it currently is. It's about $1 billion a year when it should be clearing $2 billion.
So what you're saying is, even though there's a breakaway, you're still going to have 33 conferences or whatever the number is now participating in the tournament?
So as I understand it, these schools want to run the tournament, or they want to have more control over the structure of how it would work.
So the payments so they
Correct.
want more money in the total pie, the revenue pie. Is that
Correct.
what you're saying? I mean, if
yeah,
you're
so
gonna
they want to take that pie from the NCAA,
yeah,
and add it to themselves. Like they're still gonna there's like a bunch of like random school, like small conferences that play basketball. They're still going to pay out money to like some of those to them, but it's not going to be massive amounts of money, from my understanding. That it's still going to be less than what they're paying the NCAA now.
So kind of like what they do in football now, right? The playoff money gets distributed. 80% goes to the power conferences. 20% of the pie goes to the G5 conferences, and that might change going
Correct.
into 2026. G5 might not even keep their playoff access. I hope they do. We were supposed to hear about this right about now. We haven't heard anything about the structure, if they've gone from officially 6+6 to 5+7. So what you're saying is, what you're hearing is, there's a breakaway, but not a breakaway where you cut off playoff access for basketball schools outside of what we would call the Power 5, because the Big East would have to be included. Right? So that's
Correct.
what you're saying. The access isn't cut off, but maybe more of the money will go to the power schools?
Correct. Exactly. That's exactly what I hear is going to happen. This is what I hear is happening, like the conversations that are happening behind closed doors. I don't know. Like, I heard it from somebody I trust, but also that information could be inaccurate. But It seems very logical and reasonable to me. You want to keep the product as it is now, because the tournament in and of itself right now is perfect. It's not broken in any form or fashion. It's just that you have the power conferences who want more money out of it.
Mm-hmm.
They're the primary draw. It brings in a lot of casual viewers. You keep the casual viewers by including all these other conferences. There's no reason to exclude them.
Got it.
That brings in a lot of casual viewers, which boosts the numbers, boosts the ratings. And one of the things that because you talked about the $1 billion for the tournament, and this isn't talked about enough, and I really think people should be much more aware of this. The tournament is undervalued substantially. Mm-hmm. The NCAA did a terrible job negotiating their deal, and it's believed that the tournament itself should be over $2 billion a year versus the $1 billion it is now.
Wow. $2 billion. Okay. Well, now they've got the contract they got now goes until 2032. Right?
See, the issue with that is it's like it would be like if the breakaway does happen, I don't know exactly how that would work legally or the contract with that would work, but if they break away and do their own thing, if they're no longer part of the NCAA is still responsible. They're still putting stuff out. So that's on them. Not sure how that would work out.
Yeah.
I'm not a lawyer, so.
Yeah. I'm not either, but I play one on TV. Well, I appreciate the info. It's pretty interesting. I know some people believe the power conferences threatening to break away with basketball is just a bargaining tool, right? To get more money. We'll see. Maybe again. The number one goal for these power conferences is to protect themselves from these court cases, from the lawsuits. That's the number one goal now. Whatever it takes to get so they're legitimized in the eyes of the courts, that's what they want to do. But I appreciate the call, sir.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. Have a good one.
You got it. Thank you. You know, the thing about, like, going back to the On3 article, the thing about conferences potentially paying the student athletes directly, a slice of the media revenue pie, paying the student athletes directly, probably in football, definitely in football, and maybe in basketball, because those are your revenue makers. What about Nebraska's women's volleyball that makes money? That was just announced again. They made money for Nebraska second year in a row. Why don't those student athletes?
From
Immaculate
is on the line. Why won't those student athletes, those women athletes, why won't they get a slice of that media pie? So there's this thing could go so many different ways. Mr. Hot Guy, Immaculate, the floor is yours.
Hey, Greg. How you doing today?
Doing good. Thursday, we got a possible interesting Florida State Board of Trustees meeting. It's Wednesday and Thursday, but we've been given the heads up that Thursday might create some news. And then tomorrow, Tuesday, at 10 o'clock Central Time, 11 o'clock Eastern Time, is the Big 12 football schedule 2024 being released. So we know we got our eyes on a couple things already this week. I think more things are going to pile up. What say you, sir?
It's pretty wild how busy the off season is, isn't it?
Yeah, it's always going to be busy.
It's going to be this way all year long.
Yeah,
I was going to say my focus is right now is pretty much on this whole NCAA situation, and just to, as you're doing, try to maybe help folks see another little angle on this, because there's a whole lot of manipulation going on right now. This is a long-term negotiation. It's not just started now. This has been started since 2014. That was when the very first threat to leave the NCAA was levied. And that is when the autonomous conferences were created. That's also when the CFP was created from the BCS. Whole lot going on there. Now we're, hitting about 10 years later. They're looking to take that next step with the A4, it looks like, which was the A5, with the autonomous conference system. And then, possibly also make the next step with instead of the CFP, something else. Now, for people who are looking at this and hearing things, whether it be from your school or whatnot, that, hey, we're going to do this with the tournament, we're going to take it away. There's a lot of tiers to this, right? You know this better than anyone here, of people and how much access they have. The threat to leave the NCAA has to come off as credible. It has to be these guys are actually going to do this. We cannot allow that to happen because the NCAA will go broke. A lot of other schools that are the lower end on part of that would be seriously hurting with their athletic departments if they lose out on that money. That's the threat. And while that's a lot of money, that's what, 20%, 25%? It's not the end-all, be-all. I mean, do they want to maybe get an extra little cut of pay out of the tournament? Probably. Will they get that? Quite possibly. But that's not the big deal now, is it? I mean, as big as that is, football is where it's all at. And if they can get full control, full governance in the autonomous conferences, they don't have to leave the NCAA. And if they wanted to leave the NCAA, they already would have. They've been threatening this stuff since 2014. This isn't new. I'm 100% convinced that they do not want to leave the NCAA fully. Now, then it comes down to, well, where are they going to make their gains? Are they going to still get some control over basketball or not? I don't know. Maybe. I'm sure Yormark's pushing for that, but I don't know about the Big Two. They're pushing hard on football, whereas Yormark's been saying he wants to get something in basketball to catch up. I don't know, but I'm not at all convinced that there's any reality to them leaving the NCAA. But the folks that they're trying to pressure to give them this power, they have to think it's real and that it's not just another bluff because it's already happened once. So they have to believe it, that these guys would leave. And you can see, I mean, they basically threatened Baker on a Thursday afternoon meeting before he went in to talk to congressionals about this plan. This was kind of a long-term negotiated.
Yeah, I think that the one difference is, in my opinion, between 2024 and 2014. 2014 is the courts, right? The courts, like I think these Power Four conferences are going to pay the freight when it comes to all these court costs and NCAA payment of all these lawsuits. And I think they're just trying to, I think they might just say, hey, whatever the courts are deemed where these student athletes should be employees, we're going to have to get control away from the NCAA. So I understand what you're saying. Historically, this has always been a threat to its, I get what you're saying, but it might be a little bit different now just because everybody just wants to get the courts off their back.
Sure.
Yeah.
And if, like you're talking about with the employee stats and whatnot, I think that that's probably going to be conference controlled, not individual school controlled. If the autonomous conferences are giving full governance power over Division I, or maybe they take FBS and split it from FCS and create that new division like they're talking about, and that's what the autonomous divisions are in control over, then they can pass all these. But, they have to have full governance, right? They need to be able to vote to do this stuff without it having to go through the whole bureaucracy of the NCAA voting system, which is very much antiquated and out of date with kind of what they need these days in order to nimbly react to this situation. And because you're right, it's a much bigger situation than 2014. But 2014 was over the NCAA denying them the ability to pay $2,000 stipends to student athletes. So we're talking about the same situation here. It's just magnified. And the little bit of governance that they got in 2014 is, equal to what they're wanting to do. It's like, okay, that's enough for us to do this for now and keep going. And then it looks like they've set a 10-year, it's not a 10-year plan, but, it's a plan, and it's taken about 10 years at this point. And now I think it's been forced, maybe even sooner than they intended. Like this lawsuit coming up next year is going to kill them. So they need to have this done for that, so that and it was in the article you put. They're saying that the trust situation that doesn't reach that, and the writer basically was just kind of saying the same thing I did, but he put it as his little side thing, like, this could be the case that they're just pushing to get that power and then to have that governance for themselves while they remain in the NCAA. I pretty strongly believe that if they wanted to leave the NCAA, they already would have. They'd already be done. They'd already be going in that direction. I don't think they want to. And so if they're going to negotiate with the NCAA, that bottom one right there. If they wanted to do that, they would have. So they're going to have to give in some degree. And the easy leverage point on the NCAA is the basketball tournament. It's so easy. It's so easy to use. So to hear these talking points coming out about, we're going to take that away too. Well, yeah, that's what you're doing to scare them. So that's just a long-term negotiation, in my opinion. I could be wrong on that. Mm-hmm. I don't know what you think on that, but I just think
I don't know. A lot of people would agree with you, Immaculate. This is all about negotiation, and that basketball thing has always been the stick. We're going to pull out. It's just the greatest motivation in all of this is the courts. So I don't know. My answer is I do not know.
I mean, that's what's really truly no. But it's just wanted to call in and say that for folks to be aware of. Don't necessarily just expect the nuclear option to happen. It could, should these negotiations go bad. But understand that there has already been something created that will give them all the power they need if it's just empowered to do so. So it's not as complicated as they're making it out to be, and hopefully, rational minds take over and get this done here quickly. So we'll see. But that's all I really have for you today, buddy.
You got it, buddy. Thank you, Mr. Hawkeye.
Have a good one.
You got it. Beautiful. Mr. Hawkeye, Detroit Lions coach needs to be fired? T-Duck? What are you talking about, huh? T-Duck is not, he's not giving, he's not giving Mr. Campbell much of leeway here. Oh my God! Smokes. Detroit Lions, one game away from going to the Super Bowl. Yeah, they. Do you want to fire Dan Lanning, the Oregon head coach, for Detroit head coach? He can't be fired. And a very successful season for the Detroit Lions.
Call from
Rock and Rant.
Rock and Rant is on the line. Thanks for calling, my friend. The floor is yours.
Hey, Greg. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, sir. Thanks for calling. Appreciate it.
Yeah, good to finally talk to you and not just you ranting in the chat. But I wanted to send you some more super chats later to help you heal from all the daggers you get from triggering people over Miami and the Big Ten conversations. But I did want to come in and talk a little bit because I think there's some, I don't know, not even misconceptions, but maybe some misconceptions or misunderstandings about a few things as it relates to the conversation you have, without going into too much detail, which I can totally do to you privately on a DM. But I work in the space, media rights for years. I've worked for some of the people that you've dropped names on in the past. Not doing it currently, so I don't want to act like I'm some big insider that knows what's happening an hour ago. And I did go to Miami and have been a donor, know some of the Golden Kings, and know some people in the department. So just as a precursor, when you talk about Julio Frank, who's the president, and him being cautious, I think you're 100% correct. And some of this stuff is take it with a grain of salt because them being a private university, it's also difficult to confirm every single thing. But Miami traditionally has had their presidents on 5-year contracts. And his last contract reportedly was up in 2020, And there was a lot of dissatisfaction with him at the time because the school rankings had been going down in U.S. news relatively. Some of that was due to how those rankings were calculated for private schools, but Miami was disproportionately hit. But as you know, that was also the year that COVID hit, and he has a health background, and that a public health background specifically, and that sort of bought him some more time.
Yes, he actually worked for the Mexican government in health.
Correct.
Yep.
Correct. So that gave him a little bit of a window, and I know he was definitely trying to get himself into 2025, which, give or take a year, is the 100th anniversary of Miami as an institution. It's a very relatively young school compared to a lot of Big Ten and other schools.
Yeah.
But the point being that it's not a certainty that he's going to get another contract and be in a position to be completely cautious. I don't think Miami is about to do tomorrow. I think there was a caller yesterday who did mention that there is certainly a path of following some degree of the template of whatever Florida State does because it is in Florida. FSU does have the advantage of being a public entity, so it's not a one-for-one match, but there are some parts of it that...
Did you say that that he was on a call and said that?
No, I'm saying it's not. There was somebody on your show yesterday.
Sorry, that Bob. Got it. Yeah, okay.
That Miami could follow that sort of
Yes, sir.
path.
Yes, sir.
So it's not for sure that even though Miami voted to approve Stanford and Cal and SMU, and people took that as a sign that Miami was worried, I would have taken it, and the people that I talked to that are in positions to have at least a good idea. Again, like, take everything with a grain of salt. This whole thing evolves all the time, as you know better. I mean, your show has gone crazily improved over the last year as your sources always get better. And that was also more of a, hey, Miami doesn't really want to be known for breaking up two conferences because that's the stigma they got after the Big East fell apart. And things are always fluid. And they just had gotten into the AAU, of which Cal and Stanford had just voted for them, right? And the timing was there. So I think that was more of just trying to be a good neighbor. And if you're leaving your landlord's house potentially one day, leaving it in good shape relatively as you can, as opposed to, leaving scars and marks on the walls on your way out.
I would agree with you. I think a lot of people would disagree with both of us, but I would agree with you on that.
They can disagree because there's always a preconceived bias about Miami. And we can go into the history of why that is, but that's a whole different call on another day.
Yeah.
I'll just use an analogy from the Howard Stern fan of the Howard Stern movie Private Parts, where people who don't like Howard Stern in the day used to listen more than people who liked Howard Stern. Right? Polarizing brands draw people in for good reasons and bad reasons either way. And some schools like to embrace that. So they can have that opinion one way or the other. But the long story short is, on that particular part, is Frank may be cautious, but he's not necessarily the only one at the wheel. People perceive that John Ruiz was the only money person at Miami.
He's not.
When he started LifeWallet, which is completely not true. There are multiple other billionaires in there, including the people who own Inter Miami, who have actually also been on the board, let alone 2 or 3 other people.
Correct.
Including one whose son was a coach at Miami baseball team. So it's not necessarily what people want to perceive. And while I'm not going to sit here and act like Miami doesn't have a hard time drawing at times, right? Because it's Las Vegas, essentially. It's a big game town without the gambling and with the beach, right?
Yep.
And when you suck, no one's going to come. And if you're playing Wake Forest, that's not really going to be the thing. I mean, I wish it was different. But that said, Miami still has a season ticket base of around 40 to 45,000. And people don't get this. They play in a stadium. All the stadium conversations that people want to talk about. One, UCLA, I live in Los Angeles, is a further commute to go to the Rose Bowl, which is an amazing stadium and venue. No one ever brings that up. Miami plays in a stadium that hosts Super Bowls and college national championships in one of the most desired tourist areas to go take a road trip in the country. And they also pay no rent. They have no overhead for the stadium. The Dolphins do not charge Miami rent. There's a rev share on concessions and things like that, but they don't have to pay for whether the bathrooms aren't working or remodeling, none of that stuff. So what they can make on a lower butts in seats thing is less important because if the tickets are sold, the tickets are sold, and they're still making the money and they have no overhead on it. So I think there's just a little bit of a misconception there. There's a reason why Miami's recruiting classes are coming in where they are. It's because their NIL program, aside from John Ruiz, is actually working with other people behind it. If you talk to agents or others, they will tell you it's one of the best organized ones in the country, despite the drama that Ruiz caused with Life Wildwood when he first started his own version of that. And they're investing $100 million into an on-campus facility because they have that. In terms of people not also understanding, Miami's in Coral Gables, and if you've never been there, it's essentially like being in the middle of Beverly Hills for Florida. You're not putting a 60,000-seat stadium in the middle of Beverly Hills, nor are you going to be able to do it in Coral Gables. So the only other thing I would comment on from your show yesterday, and thanks for just what you do. I think you do a tremendous job, and turn me on to other great creators like Immaculate Show and several others. And it's been really great, especially when I was up and injured with my knee recently. So I thank you. But the one thing I sort of don't know if I agree with you in principle is the concept that, I'm not acting like Notre Dame wouldn't be number one or UNC wouldn't be number two or Florida State ahead. That's not what, I don't at all disagree that that's probably the pecking order. But I think the Big Ten is prepared to go. If they got Florida State and Miami tomorrow and the ink got dried, right? Contract's done, everything, FSU magically got everybody out and the ink was dried on that paper. And 10 seconds later, Notre Dame and North Carolina had FOMO. You would be 22 in 3.7 seconds, right? So logically, the Big Ten knows that they're going to be willing to go to that degree of schools. It's probably in the long run 24. I know others have that sort of take, but sometimes I can't stand Florida State. I want them to lose, but I respect Jen Nolan and all those other people because I know their brand's important. Somebody else posted a week or two ago that despite Miami sucking essentially for the last 20 years, their brand is still ranked in the top 10 to top 20 at a minimum, while not being good. Their TV ratings are still good on broadcast when they get on them, when they have those things. Mm-hmm. And people have to get past it just being about a market. It's the market, for sure. Like they want the market. Fox wants that market. But it's also, there's a ton of Big Ten alums down in that market, right?
Yeah.
There's the national TV ratings. It's not so much about whether or not the ratings are awesome in Miami, because they will be. It's also whether they draw nationally. People like to give crap to Miami. Miami's sold out the Final Four ticket allotment for basketball last year of 20,000 tickets. The fan base is just more spread out because so many people come from other places. So it is an outlier. It's a little bit weird in some ways, but we're still talking about them. We're still talking about the school. And you can trigger everyone you want, but it's a blended thing. People like to look at it's black or white. It has to be the stadium. It has to be the TV market. It has to be the alum. It's all of these things together that blend into why people want somebody to be a part of it, as opposed to, I don't think any school in the Big Ten really cares that there's 10,000 empty seats this week at Hard Rock, because all that means is that they can have a road trip and sell 5,000 or 10,000 more seats than they might get for a game that they would get from Michigan. Because people will either travel or they're there. And they're only getting the revenue of the seats that they sell anyway. So I think people like to put their perceptions on any school, good, bad, or different, whether it's Michigan to Ohio State. And I just wanted to throw out something specifically about Julio Frank, specifically about the order. Some of it is pretty informed, but could be wrong tomorrow, right? As you know all the time. And of course, yesterday when you went into the deeper conversation, I wasn't on to say anything, so I just wanted to call in for the first time and give you an opinion that people can destroy in the chat. I don't care.
No, you're fine. You did a great job. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Greg.
Rock and Rant, call us again. Please call us again. Thank you, sir.
Will do.
Appreciate it. Yeah, fantastic. Rock and Rant early peak member, Cloak and Dagger member, and also now he's calling in. I love it. I love having the hurricane perspective. Yeah, it was a great call. Miami has a very diverse population: Cuban Americans, Hispanics, retired white people. They're also bringing in a lot of Venezuelans lately. So yeah, very diverse market. Yes, indeed. Phone lines are open, 763-260-1333. If you're coming in late, we've talked about a couple different stories.
Call from
Steven is on the line. The floor is yours, sir.
Yeah, I wanted to say a couple things. First off, I remember my first encounter with you. The first time that I saw you was when you were talking about the Big 12, Pac-12 situation,
yeah.
and I kind of jumped off and didn't watch any of the rest of the video after you said that Colorado was going to the Big 12. I doubted you there, and yet you have proven me wrong. I think with the academic situation I thought that you presented yesterday, I thought was interesting. I mean, and I just wanted to say this one thing. For the last 10 years or so, there really hasn't been a University of Wisconsin. They've gone through a rebrand to UW-Madison, and I know it might seem like splitting hairs, but I think the Board of Regents for Wisconsin has changed their name from the UW system just to try to distance itself from the current model.
Okay.
From the prior model, I mean. Mm-hmm. So yeah, strangely enough, the Wisconsin Badgers do not play for the University of Wisconsin anymore. No, they play for UW-Madison.
Yeah,
but that's beside the point. Yeah. I guess it's interesting that you said that UW-Madison and Michigan were kind of the two most academic schools in terms of standings within AAU. I thought Minnesota, Purdue, Northwestern might be a little better than UW-Madison. I guess it's just from my experience there. I guess I could be wrong.
Not Northwestern. They're not. No. I mean, it's probably part of it is because they're a private institution. Wisconsin and Michigan are inwoven. They are a faction unto themselves in the Big Ten politics, and Minnesota usually follows where Minnesota usually follows Wisconsin in Michigan's lead, but the leaders in that faction is Michigan and Wisconsin. I get it. It's been that way for 3 to 4 decades.
And that's wonderful. I think I understand better with that, because it's like UW-Madison and the University of Michigan. I don't know. Michigan State, I think, is pretty good academically too.
I'm not ripping on any other university when I say Michigan.
I get you. I understand.
Yeah.
No. Thanks for the great coverage. Frankly, I think what you're doing is wonderful, and I really think that Miami-Rutgers rivalry, especially with the bowl game, the Pinstripe Bowl this year,
that's right.
I really think that'd be so amazing if they do join the Big Ten. I really think that those games would be so much fun.
Yep. Good point.
Anyway, I didn't catch the previous parts of the live stream, so I'll make sure to rewatch that after you're done tonight.
You got it.
Thank you so much for your work. Maybe keep your head off of a swivel a little bit, so that way you can sleep a little better at night. I think that hopefully after all this this wave is done, you might be able to get some R&R, you know.
No, we're going full. We got it foot down on the gas pedal. We're going to immerse ourselves in these rosters. We're going to be talking about college football every single day in the off season because we're getting ready. We're going to be doing watch parties for spring football games. So buckle up, Steven. Buckle up.
I hope you have fun, and I hope that you don't work too much. Okay.
No, you got it.
I'll see you.
Appreciate it.
Bye.
Great call. Great call. Thank you, Steven. Appreciate it so very much. So yeah, we've been talking about again. I want to keep everybody's head on a swivel. The Florida State Board of Trustees meeting. They're having a meeting January 31st, which is Wednesday, and they're having a meeting February 1st, which is Thursday. We were given a heads up that there might be something of interest popping when it comes to the very end of the February 1st meeting, not Wednesday, although maybe something happens Wednesday, but we think, or we were told, that something of interest might pop at the back end of this meeting, Feb 1st, this Thursday. You've got Michael Alford speaking. We were told that probably isn't going to be of interest to us here at College Football Speaker on the Corner, but the chair's report. Peter Collins, the chair. Don't anticipate any talks when it comes to the court case in Leon County and any of that, but there might be some general discussions around realignment, preparing for all that stuff. We shall see.
Call from
Jeff Fuller.
Jeff Fuller is on the line. Nice to hear from you again, Jeff. What's going on, sir?
Yeah, great to get back with you, Greg. A wonderful show. Been listening, and been a little while since I could call in, but just enjoying what you do. Great call from the Miami fan, rockin' something.
Rock and rant.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what they say the best thing about Miami is, right?
I don't know.
It's physical proximity to the United States of America.
Okay.
So yeah, it's a wonderful place. I love being there. I've traveled quite a bit worldwide and all over the country. Been to all the states and all the big cities in the U.S. and it's definitely a different feel, a different vibe, and something you can't get anywhere else. So I think it'd be a great addition to the Big Ten. Definitely add some flavor to the Big Ten culture of the mostly Upper Midwest and Northeastern schools. So
yeah,
that's interesting there. Wondering if you happened to catch the Sportico podcast about a week and a half ago. Trying to remember the guy, Ben Sutton, I think. He runs a company that helps deliver concierge football experiences to people who are willing to pay pretty big money, but it's sort of door to stadium and back to their door service with concierge type tailgating and getting in the boxes. And did you happen to catch that podcast?
Did you say Sportico?
Yeah, Sportico.
I did not
podcast.
See it. No.
Yeah, it's worth a listen. And these are the guys who deal with the finances of sports, of all the sports. But he had made some great points. He said that college football and college sports in general, but especially college football, is highly undervalued in the markets, and that it's the second most popular sport after the NFL. And he postulated that if you add up all the viewers, because there are so many more games in college football, that there would actually be more viewers of college football than of NFL games. I don't know if that's actually true. The average NFL game is so high, but he was sort of riffing and just sort of threw that out there that he was pretty sure that was the case. But he also said that if the top 50 to 70 brands, teams, football teams and brands of college sports were to band together and could collectively, negotiate with the networks, he says they would demand easily $100 million per school in media rights, which to me, I just, did a double take, and this is someone he used to head up the IMG company, and he's lived it his whole life. He sort of retired from that, sold. But give it a listen. There's a lot of great information he provides there, and it made me wonder. Also, with what you just mentioned about the basketball being the stick, where just sort of keep the NCAA in check. How we talked about the Super 2, the Big 10 and the SEC, and it looks like the Big 12 is best positioned to survive. Along with maybe an ACC that's changed if the bigger brands get out. Does your mark in the Big 12 with a strong basketball presence, does that guarantee a little more security and or help them wield a little more a bigger stick within this whole realignment process, in your opinion?
Yes, I think so, and I think they believe it. They believe it. That's why Brett Yormark is always poking and prodding his own presidents and athletic directors to possibly add some basketball affiliate only schools. They haven't done it yet, but they might. And that brings up another question, Jeff. If there is a breakaway, if it's not just a threat, if they're actually going to do it, there may be some basketball affiliated schools that join the Power Four conferences, right? So that's something.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know UConn was rumored before, and their football brand is so weak. They've got some solid other sports, and then basketball is so amazingly strong. So it would be an interesting add as a full member to a conference. And I know they've talked about maybe adding other strong basketball brands like Gonzaga, just for basketball only or not, non-football. But again, I'm sort of jumping topics here again. But
that's okay.
What is the answer when you have two revenue sports and football's probably between 70 and 75% of it all, basketball maybe 20 to 25%, and then all the other sports combined, media value-wise are probably 5%, maybe 10 at the most. And we're seeing some changes there, some women's basketball, some volleyball, and I think the conference networks are bringing, some of that, more viewers and sort of reestablishing viewership habits there.
Mm-hmm.
But still, they're not revenue sports. Between attendance, between what they drive in media dollars, between what they, the season tickets, the sponsors, who are sponsoring, the commercials or the signs at those events. Between that and the Title IX stipulations that you have to have as many scholarship athletes that are female as male. That's just never. How do you merge a system that's not capitalistic like Title IX with all the with NIL? One thing. Go ahead.
No, I don't know. I don't know. And let me throw this at you, Jeff. I mean, some of these sponsored sports that are not traditionally revenue creating sports. Some of them at some universities are revenue creating sport. So how would you
absolutely.
Yeah, like Nebraska's women's volleyball, for example.
Yep.
I know there's SEC
they
programs, baseball. Go ahead.
Yep. Yeah, baseball in the SEC, Vanderbilt, South Carolina,
Yeah.
Mississippi, Ole Miss, LSU, massive basketball or baseball attendance.
Yeah.
They love it. They attend. Same thing with, even some smaller sports, some ACC soccer, women's soccer and men's soccer, some lacrosse, Big Ten hockey.
Minnesota makes money. Most of them don't, but yep.
Yeah. And even at BYU, some of our biggest draws are women's soccer and men and women's volleyball. BYU is actually in the top 3 in the nation in attendance in all those 3 sports. So, those are definitely bringing in money at BYU. But yeah, you're right. It's sort of interesting that these non-revenue sports at a few places they're definitely turning a profit. So, how do you deal with these exceptions and
I don't know.
Things that are hard to quantify, and it almost makes you think these universities really need to show us the actual numbers. All these things they report to USA Today, to the Knight Foundation or EADA. There's so much variability in how they report. Who's earning money and what's revenue neutral and what's losing money. It's confusing, and I guess we let the accountants figure that out. But I just feel a little lost in this situation of where everything's going. It's so so turbulent.
I'm not nowhere near close enough to know the answers, and I'm not even smart enough, Jeff, to even be able to hang on this wild tiger that we're riding, right? I mean, I'm barely keeping up with all the ins and outs of this. I have no answers, unfortunately.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, crazy times, and we're all going to remember this. When things do settle out in the future. One last point. This same Ben Sutton guy in this interview with Sportico, this podcast a week and a half ago or so, he mentioned that over contraction is a big would be financially just potentially a poison pill, or just really cutting off your nose to spite your face, where maybe the top 24 or 30, or excuse me, the top 30-ish brands will sort of super contract, and they'll leave out the Vanderbilts and Northwesterns and maybe Minnesota and Indiana, and if they pick off a couple ACC schools and just go to like 25 or 30 schools trying to make it the NFL of college, that how short-sighted that would be in losing, almost half, probably over half of all total college football fans, who right now will watch those games because they might affect their team's ranking or their team's chance to get to the playoffs. So, he warned of that, but he said 50 to 70 schools would be sort of the sweet spot for maximizing media value if they could all working together. He says right now you have these mini fiefdoms of conferences that aren't getting all that they should because they can just play off one another. The media partners can play off one another to sort of bring just not pay them what they're truly valued according to what the viewership is showing and other things. So again, great show, love your stuff, and I'll hang up and listen.
Appreciate it. Got it, Jeff. Thanks for the call. Call again, sir. You got it. Well, a great call by Jeff Fuller once again. I mean, that's the rule of thumb. The more content you bundle, the better leverage you have in the marketplace. So in theory, you're going to take 70 schools content and you bundle it together, and you're going to have more of a leverage over the media companies. In theory, yes. This is why these conferences bundle up their third-tier content, their first-tier content. It's better to be together than alone, and the bigger content you have, the better leverage you have. What throws a monkey wrench into, there's a lot of things that throws it in there, is you have conference networks. I mean, the Big Ten networks, it's not going away. The SEC network's not going away. I mean, they're making money off this. It's very difficult for me to imagine the Big Ten and the SEC saying, yeah, sure, let's just bundle all of our content with everybody else. A lot of other schools are going to see their revenue bump way up, and the Big Ten, the SEC is only going to go a little bit up. They lose their advantage. It's very difficult for me to see that happen. It's very difficult for me to even see this thing where football breaks away but basketball is just regional, or softball is just regional, baseball is just regional. I have a hard time. I get it, a lot of travel across the country, but the Big 12 was interested in all the sports when they went west, when they expanded with Arizona State, Colorado, Utah. Yeah, football drives the bus, but they wanted the whole enchilada. They wanted all of it. The Big Ten wants all of UCLA, all of USC, all of Oregon. They don't want their baseball teams staying on the West. They want them part of the Big Ten Conference. And if the Big Ten can get the SEC, if the Big Ten can expand in the East, Southeast, they're going to want all of it. They're not going to just want the football. It's just, and the SEC, if they go into North Carolina, if they go into Virginia, they want the basketball. They just don't want the football. They want everything. So again, I'm being an old curmudgeon here. We're a peek around the corner, trying to give you the best peek. But some of this stuff, I'm having a very difficult time. There's going to be a lot of changes. And anything can happen 20 years from now. The Big Ten could fracture, the SEC, whatever, a whole bunch of things. But here in the next 5 to 7 years, 8 years, some of this stuff I cannot see happening. But we shall see. We're going to be here at Peek Around the Corner covering this stuff day in, day out, week in, week out, month in, month out, year in, year out. If the good Lord helps me, that's what we're going to do here at Peek Around the Corner. Baseball for Florida State and Miami makes some money. Good call, great call, good call. So many great calls today. Holy smokes. So many great calls. Okay, so what we were talking about. Again, the article on 3. What is the breaking point for the Power 4? The Power 4, they're looking like they want to, they're not so much in favor of Charlie Baker's proposal on individual trust funds for all these schools to pay their student athletes. Sounds like the Big 12, ACC, Big 10, and the SEC are all looking at this possibility of the conferences taking more and more control, having part of their media revenue, the slice of it get paid to the student athletes who are in sponsored sports that create revenue. Football, basketball. So the money's going to go from the conference student athletes. That is what is in that On 3 article. Very interesting article. Again, the courts, beginning with Alston versus NCAA, the courts indicated with a wink and a nod, basically telling everybody that was in the courtroom and all the reporters out there, basically saying to the college football world, to college athletes, athletics, NCAA doesn't have much legitimacy in our courts, but the conferences, yeah. So basically they were giving them a roadmap. The courts, the Supreme Court, was given a roadmap to college sports, saying this is the way out. Have conferences take more and more control. And it sounds like the Power 4 conferences are finally getting to that point. Okay, if you're new to the channel, If you're new to the channel, please subscribe to the channel and smash that like button if you like our content. If you subscribe to the channel, make sure you have your notifications turned on because we can come on live at any time. We're coming on live tomorrow morning. We're coming on live tomorrow morning about 10:45 Eastern Time AM, 9:45 Central Time AM. We're going to be covering in real time the Big 12 football schedule for 2024. We already reported in this live show a leaked West Virginia 2024 football schedule. So if you missed it, go back in time in this live program. I put out the 2024 West Virginia Mountaineers football schedule. Everything else is going to be released tomorrow. We're going to be covering it in real time. So get yourself subscribed, open up the notifications. I want to thank everybody for dropping on in today. Your donations, your comments, your incredible phone calls. I want to thank Jeff Fuller, Rock and Rant, all these new callers. Not Jeff Fuller, he's an old-time caller. But Rock and Rant and all the other new callers. Steven, who I haven't heard from in a long time. I appreciate you all calling in. Please call again. And before you leave our live show this early evening, smash that like button. If you did not like our content, hit the thumbs down button. Let me know in the chat or on X at Flug Empire. The account is written on the bottom of the screen in that ticker. Let me know what we can do better on our show to better serve you, the college football fan. So we're going to see you tomorrow morning. 2024 college football Big 12 schedule being released. A whole lot of excitement. And there's other stuff going on this week. Florida State Board of Trustees Wednesday and Thursday meeting. We've been told, keep your head on a swivel when it comes to that late in the morning on Thursday. Maybe something of interest is going to be said there by Peter Collins, the chairman of the board. We shall see. We shall see. Until next time, from all of us at PATC, to all of you, please you all take great care of each other. Thank you